If, like me, you've always wondered how on earth the team at Amari moves so many cars around their incredibly tight showrooms, I guess now you know. Hello one and all, and welcome to Seen Through Glass, and yes, welcome back to Amari. It's been a couple of years since I was last here, and things have changed. The eagle-eyed viewers amongst you may have noticed that Amari have expanded and moved into this kind of new showroom, or at least expanded into this new showroom behind me. This used to be a Ducati motorbike showroom. It's now kind of the Ferrari room down here at Amari, and today I've come to not only catch up with Sheikh Amari himself and check out the sort of new and improved space, but to also test drive two of the most iconic modern day supercars made. Because back in 2009, Ferrari and Lamborghini went head to head in a V12 war, bringing back two of their most iconic badges. For Ferrari, the GTO, which previously had only been seen on the 250 GTO and the 288 GTO. For Lambo, the SV, the Super Veloce, which again had only been seen on two cars, the Miura SV and the Diablo SV. Strangely, these cars are very similar, both of them over 6-litre V12s, around 660 horsepower, around 470 Newton meters of torque. Both cost around £300,000, both did 0 to 60 in around 3.5 seconds, both were limited. You get the idea. But whilst they were so similar, they're also fundamentally so different, not just because it's a Ferrari and it's a Lambo, but that is a front-engined V12, that is a mid-engined V12, rear-wheel drive, four-wheel drive. So yes, we're going to jump into both cars, take them for a drive, and see whether they are either very similar or very different. Okay, we are kicking things off in the 599 GTO, mainly because I feel like I have kind of more to say about this car, but also, he's a Ferrari, and you know me, I'm always going to pick the Ferrari. Here we go. Now, this car's always had a little bit of a hard time because of the 3 letters at the end of its name, GTO. You've got to think back to the 250 GTO, which I think is still the most expensive car ever sold at auction. We're talking circa $50 million. It was then followed up by the 288 GTO, which was effectively Ferrari's Group B rally car, but for the road. It's a supercar that was ahead of its time. So when the 599 came along and they said, oh look, we're going to make a GTO variant, people were like, well, that doesn't feel very special. Aren't you supposed to make a GTO really special? All you're doing is shaving off 100 kilos and giving it a little bit more power, and that is all they did. But I think time has looked fondly upon the 599 GTO, because as the world becomes a little bit more synthesized and, you know, emotions are kind of dialed out of the cars that we have to drive, I feel like the GTO is just enough rawness that it's still, oh my god, so exciting. There's a bump in the road that I'll slow down for. Because yes, we have got over 650 horsepower going to the rear wheels from a naturally aspirated V12. I mean, it's just, the noise is magnificent. And the thing is, I'm a mid-engine Ferrari guy, and you know what, there are different customers. Of course, you get some collectors who will just buy everything, but I spoke to Ferrari about this at great length, and they see different customers buying the mid-engine stuff to the front-engine stuff. And whilst I appreciate the V12, and you know, I love things like the TDF and 250 short wheelbase, I just lean towards mid-engine. And I did actually drive a 599 GTB at the end of last year in Dubai. I was just off camera, and I just thought it was floaty and not very precise and a bit lackluster, if I'm honest. This different machine, when you drive these Ferraris, the first thing you have to be aware of is just how quick and sharp the steering is. It's not only light, it's just direct. wherever you want to go, look, and you will get there. And what's weird about the front engine cars is that you sit far back, you've got these long bonnets in front of you, the cars are big and wide, and you feel like you're going to understeer into every hedge, because that's what your brain tells you. You're like, this car is too big and heavy to get around that corner at this speed. But somehow it does it, and it does it with ease, to the point where it goes, hey, come on, drive faster, who are you? It's unreal. And so this car, as a point of difference to the GTB, in my mind, it's night and day. It feels immediately more taut, more agile, more hardcore. I mean, there's a lot more road noise, I have to say. It is pretty loud in here. I hope you guys can hear me all right. And the ride is definitely significantly harsher. There's no bumpy road mode as you find in modern day Ferraris. But that's kind of what it's meant to be. It's lightweight, it's hardcore, it's dialed in. I also think that the looks of the 599 are aging insanely well. It's just a pretty car, in my opinion. And what I liked about the GTO is they didn't go over the top. They didn't just put a wing on the back and do really aggressive scoops. If you look at the TDF, like, that thing is a monster compared to a standard F12. The 599 GTO, it's subtle. Whilst they did change a lot because they saved a lot of weight in body panels, it wasn't sort of completely different. Your eyes could be tricked if you put the two next to each other. I think only real nerds would be able to say that's a GTO. But the soundtrack is what really stands out. If one of these things drove past you, you'd know about it. Let me put the window down a little bit because I can see we're going over a sort of almost like a bridge tunnel. Is that a thing? He's going to try first gear. That's aggressive. I mean, cars do not sound like this anymore. They don't. And what's kind of brilliant is it can still be a pretty good GT. I'll come out of race into sport and forget the noise, forget the slightly bumpy ride. It's actually a very nice place to be. It's spacious, of course. There's still air conditioning. There's still a radio should you want it. And I could do long distances than this. I mean, that is the point though, isn't it? That is the point in a front-engined V12 Ferrari. This one is just manic. It's just absolutely insane. Now, values of these things have kind of been all over the place. When they came out, 300 odd grand. It was about 100 grand more than a GTB. Extortionate. People were like, the world's gone crazy. No one's ever going to be able to buy this. They got so overinflated, a bit like the TDF, they went right up to about £800,000. But over the last few years, they've dropped down again, and depending on right-hand drive, left-hand drive, mileage, etc., you're probably looking back towards kind of list at maybe 400 grand rather than 300. I think, well, I don't think it's a steal, but I think it warrants that kind of price tag, because we don't see these three letters very often. And whilst you might go, the 599 GTO is not special enough to be a GTO, they should have done more, I don't care. It is still a GTO, it is still cool, and it's kind of the last of a golden era. Because this single clutch gearbox, it's brutal. You know it's there, but it's so good. It is so, I don't think they could have ever made it much better than this, I have to say. I do kind of adore this thing. I do. Would I ever have one over a sort of special mid-engine car, for example, a Speciale Aperta? Probably not, because that's the way I lean. But if I was a big badass collector, would it be in my collection over a TDF? Maybe, because it's scary fast, but arguably a little bit more usable. I am lost once again, but that does just give me an excuse to keep driving this thing. I think it was back there. Yeah, it was definitely back there, right? How do I turn around? From the style and elegance of the Ferrari 599 to the Lamborghini Murcielago SV. Now, I don't want to be rude. I actually love the idea of this thing. I actually think I love it, but it's a very different concept. Let me just explain to you firstly that I'm sitting sideways. I'm here looking, you know, at 12 o'clock, basically straight ahead, and my feet are over at like 10:30. The wheel is at about 11, so I feel like I'm sitting at this angle that whenever I turn right, it's a really weird sensation. Over and above that, I would say that this is immediately way more supercar, much more of a sort of event. Just sitting in it, the feeling, everything about it. The 599, as I think I said, you know, if you sort of squinted a bit, you could confuse it for a GTB, and at that point it's a bit low key. Well, there's nothing low key about this car. Now, seatbelt is over this side. Things I need to learn about a Murcielago. Foot on the brake. Now this has been taking a while, so hold on a sec. Oh, okay, so key out. Bloody Lambos. The thing is, it's not that they don't work, you just have to learn how to do everything. There we go. See, I told you, it's just a trick. Just okay, that's all. Oh, that's a lot of fan. That's a lot of aircon. Wait for all the lights to go out. They've all gone out, and nope. Hold on. Maybe they haven't gone out. Okay. Start again. Okay. Wait for all the lights to go out. Ooh. Ha-ha! I don't know what I did, but it's working. Whew, that was a nerve-wracking moment. As I say, that will definitely be something to do with me and not the car, but still. What was I saying? I don't really remember. Anyway, I've come to the sort of decent road that I drove the GTO on, and I wanted to start right at the beginning because I haven't really had a chance to open this thing up yet. It's a lot more intimidating. I think the sound, where you're sitting, because it's so weird. Corsa mode, I'm in manual. You'll notice immediately that the clutch isn't quite as good as that GTO's clutch. It's just all a little bit more cumbersome. Anyway, yes, here we go. So, I feel like we're all a lot more familiar with the SV kind of brand or badge nowadays because there seem to be SVs everywhere. SV Roadsters, SVJs, it's kind of non-stop. But back in the day, back in 2009, the SV hadn't been seen for quite a long time, and it was the first time that the SV had appeared since Audi bought Lambo. So it kind of represented this opportunity for a little bit of mad Lambo with the benefit of a German company like Audi. Now I'm actually going to pull over here because I've got a lot of traffic on this road suddenly, and this is not a car that you want to have to negotiate traffic. So yes, actually maybe it will allow me to concentrate for 2 seconds and just tell you that look, 350, that's all that were made of this car, not 500, not 750, not 1,000, it was limited numbers. And yes, it was a monster, 100 kilos lighter than the LP640, I believe, a little bit more power, and just a lot more shouty. The whole thing, the styling, the aero, everything about it, aimed at super performance on track as well as on road. Okay, here we go, let's try that again. But the big standout feature to this car, which differs it from the 599, is, like so many Lambos, it's four-wheel drive. So immediately I feel a little bit more confident to step on the accelerator pedal, even though we've still got 650 plus. I think it's actually in this car, I think we're like 670 odd horsepower. I don't know why, I just feel a bit more like, you know, the car will figure it out. That could be a mistake, we'll find out. The other thing to say is that this thing is huge. It's wider than a Range Rover, and it feels longer than the Titanic. Manoeuvring it around in the UK, daunting. I don't know how Paul Wallace lived with his LP640, but yeah, I mean, everything about this car is mad, but it is poster car. You know, it's mad, but it's kind of brilliant and aggressive, and oh, all right, here we go. we have taken off. We have taken off. Bum, bum, oh, oh. Yes, I immediately feel like we're going a lot faster than in that GTO. Maybe just because I'm sitting closer to the ground or because of the soundtrack. Oh, this is exciting. This is really exciting, people. Oh. I'm having to concentrate. I don't know if you can tell. I've probably stopped speaking as much, which maybe is a good thing, but... Oh, I love it. I actually love it. I didn't think I was going to say that because from the drive from the dealership here, I was like, oh, what is this? I was kind of laughing. But now, the minute I am able to accelerate, I'm like, what a creation. And it just feels hooked up, like it kind of feels on rails, like the steering is a lot heavier and it's almost pulling against me, but that makes it feel like I kind of work for it a bit more. It's letting me know what's going on, and then you get onto a road like this and I think I want a Murcielago. I think... Oh. Okay, well no, let's face it. This car is all about this. The moment that you can thrash it. Because the rest of the time, especially in comparison to the GTO, it's just nowhere near as refined. It still feels big and brutal and sort of annoying. My back is already starting to hurt as well, but it's kind of all worth it. You know, I've been toying with the idea of a Mark I Gallardo Superleggera recently. They are just unbelievably cheap or affordable. And I feel like maybe it would share some of the characteristics of this car. This feels like a different era of Lambo. Now, the Aventador SV is special and it has a similar characteristic, but this just feels way more aggressive, and I'm not saying it in a negative way, basic. Oh, I haven't even opened the windows yet, have I? Hit a bit of traffic again, but look, if I just hold back 2 seconds. Oh, am I starting to become a bit of a Lambo fan? I can't, because that 599, it's so funny how they're so different. You know, as I say, performance, well, engine-wise and performance-wise, to be honest, they're so similar, but they go about it in such different ways. This is, boom, set the lava record! Well, the Ferrari is like, we will win at a Mille Miglia, and then we will have some spaghetti. It's like, I can't get over what different ideas they are. But if you're spending the money and you want to achieve these kind of things with a V12, like for like. But you couldn't pick. You couldn't pick. You'd want both. So freaking cool. And the doors go up. Why am I getting so excited about this thing? I don't know. But it's just cool. And as I say, it's got that true supercar feel. I've never hidden the fact that I'm a big fan of all cars from kind of, I don't know, 1995 to 2005. Like, that's my era. This is nearly past that era, but it's also at such a sweet spot. Except that clutch, which is not having fun any day of the week. Hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. And, you know, I think the Aventador and the Aventador SV are better cars in every single way, but there's something to be said for the Murcielago SV. The gearbox definitely not as refined as the GTO. It makes Ferrari look like absolute geniuses for being able to make a single clutch work as well as they did. This is definitely, yeah, a pain, because now, stop-start traffic, having to let people go, I'm a bit like, oh God, is it going to catch fire? But a minute ago, when I was really on it, this thing was marvellous. Looks cool. Have I said that already? Probably. Will my GoPro still on? I don't even know. Wow. I'm gonna ask you, because I can't decide. What would you have? GTO or Murci SV? It's an impossible question to answer.
It is actually, it is, and you know, I'm quite fortunate to have both of them. But what I would say to you is that I'd have the road raper, which is the SV.
The road raper.
That's what I call it. The road raper.
Count on you to have some unique terms. Thank you so much for today.
You're more than welcome.
This is amazing, by the way, guys. Look at this place. It's absolutely stunning. I mean, casual P1 918 and F40 at the back. You never fail to deliver. But honestly, two incredible cars. What an experience.
Thank you very much for coming down.
No, well, I'll be back. I mean, I've got to find an excuse to come and visit here more.
Come back and buy the SV.
Yeah. Don't tempt me.
No problem.